Welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football, presented by SportBuff. I'm your host, Tim Capper, along with Cliffy D. Are you as tired of these dreary home games this year as I am? I mean, yes, it was nice to get a win, but man, it rained again. I kind of feel bad, sorry, not sorry for people that were sitting out in the rain. I mean,
yeah, we're kind of fortunate. I mean, I'm very thankful that we've got the tickets that we do because, yeah, even though the inclement weather has really affected, I think the overall attendance of the games, like we're fine. Like we're protected from the elements. So I'm like, I don't think you and I really care whether it rains or not, but at the same time, I can see how it'd be tough for people that are out there. And I had to laugh. I mean, give them credit. The folks that were there this past Saturday, they put on their ponchos, they had their, heavy coats on and everything, and they stuck through this. But yeah, it's still not fun to think about.
No, it's not. And considering that we still have the home finale coming up this Friday, and which will be the Alouettes, the latest the Alouettes have ever had a home finale in their history. Yeah,
they certainly played games in November, but usually it's like early November, and even then it's still
usually we're playoffs. Usually we're coming up on Eastern Western finals weekend.
Mm-hmm. Actually, and you think about it, I think it was yesterday, November 16th, was the 5 or 6 year anniversary of the last Alouettes playoff win at home, which was that absolute beatdown of the BC Lions back in 2014.
Wow.
So, I mean, yeah, this is normally playoff time. Like, we're literally in the playoffs talking by this point of the year, but everything's later this year. So that's just, just another interesting wrinkle.
Yeah, but it's an interesting wrinkle considering, there's the story with in a Gazette this week with President Marchicini, which we'll talk about because, both you and I are bringing up good points about when the games are being held, the crowd that is showing up. And obviously we're being affected more by weather this year because of how it was stacked. I didn't mind having all these stacked home games in the latter half of the season. But a Friday at 7:30, I understand TSN is controlling, it's basically the controlling interest in the matchups and stuff like that. I guess the matchups. But yeah, come on. I mean, thank God this game is actually going to mean something. Because if it did not, you and I have sat through games before in the past where it's been garbage time, basically, because everything's been dealt with, and it's kind of like last night's COVID makeup game between the Elks and Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, it looked and played like a preseason game essentially. And
when you have 17, I saw this. It's like 17 placed on the quote unquote injured list, and 18 players taken either from practice roster or backups are starting. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, it's brutal. And it's just one of those games, like, there's a big part of me that has to, well, I guess not really a wonder because, the Toronto Argonauts are not going to be playing until December 5th now.
I know.
So there's, you don't want to, it's way too soon to rest people, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want to rest people either. It's such a weird dynamic to have to go through. And I guess a good problem to have, especially if you're Argos, because that means, well, you're going to the Eastern Final. So
yeah, but it'll also be 3 weeks.
That's it. I mean, like that's still a lot of time, and you can't really game plan for anybody because you don't know who you're going to face. The only thing you're certain of is, okay, the game's being played in our barn. That's it.
And it's one of these two teams.
Yep.
But obviously, we're not getting ahead of ourselves. We still have something to play for this weekend, which I'm hoping, we do what we need to do, and then obviously Saskatchewan starts who they need to start. But we'll talk about that. The game this week, the Alouettes, the game was okay. I mean, the Owls did win 28-14, but before 12,605, and I would say that seemed pretty accurate, considering the weather, considering finally, it was nice having a day game. Especially a 1:00 game. I'm so glad this game wasn't at 4, because we actually got out there technically when it was still daylight. So
technically, but not long after. Like even the drive home, I'm like, it just pretty much turned black. I'm like, it just kind of hit me while I was driving home. Like, wow. In a perfect, well, I don't want to say perfect world, but in a normal world, And even that's kind of a dicey thing to say, but
in a normal world where Cliffy drives home when it's really sunny outside. Yeah. The
fact that, like this is when we should have been actually arriving and watching the game as opposed to going home from it.
Yeah,
it's just bizarre, but yeah. No, it was very good thing that they switched it to a 1:00 start time versus a 4:00 start time for so many reasons.
Yeah, I'm glad. Obviously, I'm glad they did. Beat the Bombers, and as it sets up this week's game where the Alouettes need to win versus Ottawa, and hope for a Saskatchewan win so the Alouettes can host the Eastern semifinal next week. Mm-hmm. But the game itself, I mean, it was really two plays that most people will remember from this game because, William Stanback had an okay game, but Trevor Harris had an okay game, which we're going to be talking about, or maybe people think differently, but it's those two touchdown catches by Eugene Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Just, each of them were just, the toe tap one, even though it was at the side of the end zone, and it kind of reminded me of the S.J. Green catch way back when, on that Canada Day game in Regina. Kind of reminded me on that one.
There was a little bit of that, yeah.
Yeah. And then his, corner, go to the pylon and get down type of thing. At his second touchdown. To me, that really was the most memorable stuff of the game itself. I don't know what if a little bit more stood out for you than just that, but to me, that's really what stood out.
Well, the one, they were very nice touchdowns, don't get me wrong. And also the touchdown by Reggie White Jr., who also, too, had a little toe tap.
That's true, too.
Just barely. So, I mean, it was presence of mind on his part to be able to get in. So,
same thing with Gino on his first touchdown. Same exact thing, man.
Yep. No, that's it. I mean, these are receivers that obviously they understood the assignment. They had to, make sure they stayed in bounds, and they, whether they had to contort their bodies in order to do so, or just, as I said, had the presence of mind just to put your feet down just at the right moment, just before you hit that white line for it to count. But they did it. So props to those guys. I mean, again, Gino shouldn't be a surprise because that's just what he does, is score touchdowns all day long. Reggie White Jr., he's starting to come along really nicely, and it's starting to become a nice little surprise for the Alouettes. So I'm very happy to see that. As far as really outstanding play, got to go with the gadget play that happened.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't enough that Gino was catching passes. He actually had to make them as well. He had to throw a pass too. And I laugh because I'm sitting there. My first thought was when I saw Harris take the snap and he threw it directly to the side. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And then all of a sudden you watch Gino heave it downfield. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then Quan Bray. What concentration.
Quan did his best Gino impression by going up to getting the ball at the high spot. So.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That was just outstanding. And everybody got up off their feet. You caught literally everybody napping at that point. Just an absolute thing of beauty. When the gadget play is executed properly, there are a few things better. Maybe a flea flicker would be better, but
that was close. It was close.
That was damn close.
It was damn close to being a flea flicker. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, as I said, Trevor Harris, he was 18 to 25, only 144 yards, 3 TDs. Eugene Lewis, 1 of 1 for 35. At that point, he actually had more yards than the Winnipeg Blue Bombers starter Sean McGuire did. So before they went on their two play scoring drive, but
and let's not forget that was through 3+ quarters of action for Sean McGuire.
Yeah, exactly.
Those 31 yards. So.
Yeah. Oh my God! I just saw his efficiency rating for McGuire was 9.9. I just noticed that now. Oh my God. That's amazing.
It was a rough day for the young men.
Yeah. Stanback, 18 carries, 65 yards, 3.6 yards. It's just I still think that there are some issues with the O-line, especially with all the injuries still. He really did not have a good day at all. Quan Bray, 41 yards on 2 receptions. Jake Winicky, 20 yards, 2 receptions. Stanback got into it, 24 yards on a catch. Christophe Normand had a catch for a single yard. Spencer Moore got into it too. Catch for 4 yards. Reggie White Jr., 6 catches, 38 yards, and Gino 6 for 51 and 2 TDs. But they played just well enough in my opinion. I think there were still some pretty good lulls in this game where it was like, oi, this wasn't the team that Toronto brought last night, but it was like second game preseason roster in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and understandably, Winnipeg was not going to bring all of their big guns to Montreal. We understood that, especially they got their perfect home record. They sewn up the Western Division a long time ago, so it was pretty obvious the B squad was going to come in and essentially play this game because they had to. They were legally obligated to, and the effort showed. As simple as that.
Yeah, I think it also showed the Blue Bombers brass that Sean McGuire really needs a lot more seasoning, because I think somebody brought up the point, even though the Owls didn't sack him, every time that they actually pressured him and got to him he threw a pick.
Yep.
Which equaled 4. So.
And as we talked about with Darren Bombing a couple weeks ago, I mean, what's the plan if Zach Collaros goes down to injury? Like, well, you just saw what it is, and that's kind of scary. Mm-hmm. I mean, heaven forbid something happens to Zach. Well, again, I don't know if he's going to actually play this weekend versus Calgary Stampeders, because again, same thing with like the Argos. The next game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers after this weekend is December 5th.
That would
the
be
Western
nuts.
Final.
A month that they haven't played, that he wouldn't have played, is nuts.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then Michael Shea needs to get his head checked.
Well, and to me, it's all about having that plan B, right? I mean, say what you will about the Alouettes, and regardless of how you feel about Trevor Harris, at least the Alouettes knew enough to go out and get themselves a quality quarterback to fill the role if the need was there. And sure enough, turned out there was. So, I mean, like I said, you and I have our opinions about Trevor Harris, which we'll talk about shortly. But I mean, at least the Alouettes had the presence of mind to go out and get someone like that, whereas the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were like, "No, we got Zach Collaros, we're good. And what could happen? What's the worst that could happen?"
Exactly.
And again, I'm not putting down Sean McGuire. It's just, like I said, this was kind of a less than ideal situation. Like it's easy to look back now, but you probably could have said, like, there's probably a couple of games where you probably could have put Sean McGuire in to get some actual reps so that he's not, thrown into a situation. I don't want to say necessarily cold, but
doesn't that sound familiar? Oh my God, Owls fans, you've been around long enough, especially with AC. That sounds so familiar.
Doesn't it though? I mean, like, again, we've seen how this story ends, but at the same time, the history lesson is there to be learned by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and one would think they would have sort of taken care of that before the trade deadline. But okay, listen, it is what it is. That's that's it. I just hope for their sake that Zach Collaros stays healthy, because as long as they do, they've got a very, very, very good shot of winning and even repeating as Grey Cup champions. But if he goes down to injury, oh boy.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
What I think is funny when you look at it, I mean, by the way, props to the guys. I mean, 4 interceptions. Wasn't it technically 4.5?
I do have half an interception.
Yeah. I'm trying to think because, no, I'm thinking of the game last night, actually. I'm thinking of the game last night. It's like where you get one, then it's taken away by a challenge. But
well, yeah.
Yeah, but the guy, I mean, like, Greg Reed, Najee Murray, Chris Aki, and Ahmad Thomas.
Ahmad Thomas, yeah.
Wow, baby. I mean, yeah. And Aki almost brought it to the house. Almost.
He did. Najee Murray, too. If he was able just to turn the corner just a little bit, too, that would have been the Alouettes' first score right there. But
yeah, true. I mean, you look at the game itself, you would think that you just look at the time of possession itself, Cliff, and the Alouettes are completely dominated. I'm trying to remember the last time the Alouettes almost held the ball for 40 minutes. That's crazy. But what's funny, it really wasn't that, you look at the yardage, it was almost even, and the Owls held the ball for almost 40 minutes, almost 2-1.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I mean, it doesn't make. I mean, final was 252 yards to 217.
This had all the earmarks of a game that one team just didn't want to play and the other team had to play, but at the same time also didn't. Went into it kind of cautiously as well.
It's also possible too that the rain did play a factor, but I thought it would have pumped up the rushing yards a little bit more. But again, as I mentioned earlier, the line's just hurting. So I don't know. Okay, and they won. That's the main thing, right, dude? I mean, that's the main thing, that they won.
That was what they had to do. I mean, it doesn't hurt Winnipeg at all. I don't think anyone's opinion of Winnipeg has changed ever so slightly.
No.
But again, really what it came down to was the Alouettes beat their taxi squad. But again, what they had to win. If they wanted to have any chance of hosting the Eastern semifinal, they had to have won that game this past Saturday, and they didn't. So give them props for doing what they had to do.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned it earlier, and we wanted to talk about it a little bit, is that, about Trevor Harris. He's the $500,000 man, backup man. Well, he's currently the starter, and I want people to know that, yes, we're high on VA and we're high on Matthew Schultz.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to say it like it is. Yes, he's our starting quarterback now, but I the first thing I told you after the game, stats aside, that he really did not impress me much. He really didn't. He did what he had to do. I said the stats are fine.
Mm-hmm. But
to me, he just didn't really impress me much. Again, I'm worried. He's not mobile. That worries me. Again, I guess the plus is he didn't throw a pick, which is good.
He didn't. No.
Trying to find some positives. But I mean, for me, I just don't know what it is about Trevor Harris that has not really impressed me that much over the past 2 weeks.
Well, and I take a look at what he did. Yes, he threw 3 touchdowns, which is great. But I think a lot of it has more to do with the receivers versus the quarterback. Because, again, a couple, especially the 2 touchdowns to Geno.
Yeah.
Geno had to work for those, really work for those. To me, I just felt like, okay, Harris kind of either underthrew or just didn't throw properly, and Geno, again, had to twist his body into weird contortions just to be able to make the catch. But all the people are going to remember is, hey, Trevor Harris threw 2 touchdowns to Geno Lewis.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's one of those yes, but situations. And again, I really don't want to harp on the guy, but he's also still holding on to the ball way too long, as a result, taking a sack. As you said, he's not mobile. So, I mean, if you're not a mobile quarterback, you better get rid of the ball pretty freaking quick, as far as I'm concerned.
AC learned. Remember, everybody thought AC used to turtle, which he did. As much as we love AC would turtle. But yet I felt that he seems to be a little bit more, he became a little bit more mobile as a quarterback later on in his career. And yes, obviously Harris is not a Chris Trevler. Harris is not, he's not Antonio Pipkin. We saw what he did last night.
Mm-hmm. No, he's not that kind of quarterback. And it's still, I find, a very weird fit into this particular offense because, again, you're still looking at a Khari Jones offense is definitely not meant for a pure pocket passer.
Yeah.
You're expected to be somewhat mobile. VA is absolutely a mobile quarterback. Matthew Schultz, for the most part, is a mobile quarterback. Trevor Harris is not a mobile quarterback.
No.
That's not a knock on him in that sense, but it's a weird fit for this particular offense. And as a result, you have to sort of tailor things a little bit to his strengths, which I'm still not seeing enough of that. It's a very weird dichotomy, if you will, to try and understand. And again, I'm also trying to look for positives too, but to me, really what it came down to was regardless of the stats, regardless of everything else, yes, he got the win. Yes, he did what he had to do, but I just felt like, okay, well, almost any other quarterback could have had that kind of a game. And would you be showering him with all the praise that I seem to see other CFL types showering him with? Like I said, what am I not seeing here? And what are you not seeing either, Tim?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. We both seem to be in agreement that Trevor Harris is okay. He did a fine job this past Saturday, but let's be honest, a fine job isn't going to win the Grey Cup. A fine job is not going to win the Eastern Final. A fine job is not going to win the Eastern Semifinal. In fact, a fine job might win the game on Friday versus the Ottawa Redblacks, who are 2-13 now. Or sorry, 2-12, or will be 2 or could be, or they're 2-11. Sorry,
yeah, 2-11.
So a fine job isn't going to win you a championship, and that's a big concern for me. Is when are we going to see the real Trevor Harris, or are we seeing the real Trevor Harris? Is this as good as it's going to get? And my also concern is that yes, if he does well, the first thing is going to be, well, yeah, he beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers practice squad. He beat the Ottawa Red Blacks, who are just a terrible football team. When it comes time for the game, the Eastern semifinal, is he going to be that good quarter? Is his performance, his body of work, is that going to be good enough to beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats, regardless of where the game is going to be played? That's my concern right now. And, I sincerely hope that all these people these CFL people with their blinders on, who can only see the positive and good things about Trevor Harris, I hope they realize and understand that, because quite frankly, you and we're just not seeing the same thing that these people are.
Do you think many people may say that, Harris seems to be he's not a dink and dunk quarterback, but very methodical, because we've seen him put up monster numbers before.
It's been a long time, but yes, we've seen that in the past.
Yeah. That's what got him his big contract in Edmonton. I would imagine, because people need to remember too. He wasn't Edmonton's quarterback in 2020.
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. So
no, he did. As I said, he had a great year in 2018, taking the Ottawa Red Blacks to the Grey Cup. Didn't get the job done in the Grey Cup game, but okay, that happens. Still put up some pretty decent numbers, which again, he was able to parlay that into a big contract with the Edmonton football team at the time. Had a great game. Had a great Eastern semifinal against the Alouettes, and just basically carved them up like a surgeon.
He did. Yeah, he carved us up like a turkey. Yeah, big time.
I would say that was arguably the greatest game he's ever played, was that particular game. But since then, what's he done to really warrant the kind of money that he's being paid? No. And I struggled to find anything even remotely close to that. But at the same time, he's still, again, kudos to him. He managed to get the contract signed, and now the Alouettes. It's now up to the Alouettes to live up to that contract. But
at least through February.
At least, like I said, I have a hard time believing that he'll still be an Alouette the day after the football season ends, whether that's November 29th or December 13th.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that once the 2021 season is completed for the Montreal Alouettes, I have a feeling he will be basically cut.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it. Again, even if he has like an outstanding game, which we're still waiting for him to live up to his hype.
Yeah.
Like, he's been okay, as I said, and okay is fine if he's making $100,000 a year. But he's not making $100,000 a year. Dude, he's making considerably more.
Dude, it could be worse. It could be like Arbuckle in Edmonton, who hasn't gotten on the field yet. And their current starter, he was 0-6 going into the game. Cornelius was 0-6 going into the game last night. Sure, they won by I don't know if I would call that a CFL score. Maybe the 1950s or 40s CFL score.
Maybe.
But I would have thought even the TSN panel was like, what? Why isn't Arbuckle starting? Anyways,
so many weird things, and lots of questions still to be answered on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he is our quarterback now. Matt Schultz is practicing sparingly, as we are seeing on the injury report, which is a plus. But obviously, the way it looks right now, it's going to be the same as it has been for the past 2 weeks. Harris will start, and
and hopefully win. That's what he was brought in to do, was be a winner. He was supposed, again, that was the sale. That was the sale to Alouettes Nation, was that this guy is a winner. He was just in a bad situation in Edmonton, supposedly. Like, okay, can't deny that he was in a bad situation, but and yes, he won his first game finally. But again, maybe it's just us. Maybe it's just we expect more out of us, our starting quarterbacks. Like, maybe we're spoiled as far as having VA and having Matthew Schultz playing for us, that we kind of have a certain expectation level when it comes to winning with this football team.
Yeah.
And Trevor Harris, okay, yeah, he played okay enough that first game in Winnipeg, but still lost. That he played okay enough against the B squad, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
We hope he'll play okay enough against the Red Blacks and okay enough to win, but we're still waiting to be impressed, is really what it comes down to. We're still waiting for this, supposedly elite CFL quarterback to step up and show that he is that guy, that is worth the big contract that he currently has. Whether or not that'll happen, we won't know until Friday night. But
and I don't see Schultz being the backup. I think they're gonna, whatever it was, if it did cause that much problem the week before Harris started, and he should, and Harris came in relief. Maybe it was worse than what we were led to believe. But still, it's good to see that he's back. But I don't think it'll be Shea Patterson who's going to be our backup this week.
Mm-hmm. And I got to give him some props too, Shea Patterson, because he was in sparingly for like third down short yardage gambles. Mm-hmm. He did a great job. Yeah, all things considered.
Yeah, but
it's a very small, very small sample size, but
he got better with them. I think it was only one that I was really like, yeesh, but he made up for it.
Yeah. No, and listen, I mean, I'd have absolutely no problem letting him play a couple series on Friday just to see what's doing with him, because he had a very decent college career. Can his game translate to the CFL? Possibly. You won't know until you I'd like to see what this guy can bring to the table, if anything. If only just to once again have that sort of ace in the hole, if you will. Like, okay, if God forbid something happens, then Schultz can't go, especially for the Eastern semifinal.
Yeah.
Something happens to Harris, then now you got Shea Patterson. So is this guy the real deal? Is he, is he more than just a short yardage guy kind of guy? Only one way to find out, and that's to really give him some reps.
And for those who are saying again that we're just we're homers for VA and for Schultz, I want to see a game where I'm impressed. I understand. Yes, 144 yards. He was very methodical. 3 touchdowns. Yeah, okay. I just want to come away. First thing I say out of my mouth to Cliffy is, okay, Harris impressed me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I would expect a quarterback who makes the kind of money that Trevor Harris does to throw at least 144 yards and score 3 touchdowns in order to win a game for his football team, in order to advance to the playoffs and even eventually host a playoff game. Mm-hmm. This is my point. I expect this from a starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't be. I need to. He's just barely doing that. That's our issue, is that he's doing the bare minimum, and everybody else is like applauding and wanting to give him a gold star and anoint him as the next Ricky Ray.
I want a gold star.
Well, who doesn't want a gold star?
Those little sticky ones that you got to lick. Are those ones you're talking about? Are the ones that are already? Are you talking about the ones that are already pre-glued and they already have stick on them?
No, I want the sticky ones.
I want the ones from elementary school. I want those where you got to lick them and put on. I want those.
Like the gold foil and all that?
Yeah, baby, yeah.
All right. I'm with you on that one.
They mean more.
Shinier.
Yeah, but again, we will give props where props are due. And I said, it's just something. I mean, it's better than what the Owls had, where they went through umpteen quarterbacks in however many years.
Oh, yeah. And how many times we've seen these so-called great quarterbacks come in and they're supposed to, everybody and their mother expects them to dominate, and then they end up falling flat on their face. We've seen it so many times here in Montreal. It's, that's why when you get a quarterback like a Vernon Adams and to a lesser extent a Matthew Schultz, you're like, holy crap, is this what a quarterback is supposed to be?
Yeah.
This is great. And again, we're not looking for the next AC. We will never find another Anthony Calvillo. And we don't want that. We want to find like a true superstar in the making, like a Vernon Adams, like what a Matthew Schultz can be, as he's shown with given the opportunity. Like, these are guys that we know, they know the system here in Montreal. They play to it extremely well, and it's designed for them. So of course they're going to succeed if given the opportunity. Trevor Harris, though, like I said, his reputation precedes him. And yes, when he's capable of winning, it's great. But you bring him in with all this hype, he's got to live up to it. And so far, he still hasn't quite done it yet. So I mean, like I said, I guess we'll see what happens on Friday. But I mean,
yeah,
I think I need to see a really dominant performance. And even then, unfortunately, it's still going to have the asterisk of, well, he played the Ottawa Red Blacks, who are 2-11.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the sad reality of it. But at the end of the day, we still want to walk away from this game on Friday night with the confidence that, okay, the Alouettes did everything possible they could in order to host that Eastern semifinal. And yes, they're still going to need help along the way to do so. But as long as the Alouettes live up to their side of the bargain, so to speak, At least give us something. Give us something to work with, essentially.
Exactly. Don't forget we're on social media, guys. If you've been following us long enough, you know where we are, but we'll tell you anyways, just in case if you happen to have forgotten. Best place to hit it for us is over at alouettesflightdeck.ca. Has all the links for everything, including our merch store, which a little birdie has told me to stay tuned because I think there's about to be a sale going on very soon. Don't want to say anymore. Also, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, especially Facebook too, by the way, our new Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/Alouettes Flightdeck podcast. I think it's a little bit more interactive than what our other page was. We hope you guys will join. I know I've asked many of my friends to join. Have you done the same yet, Cliff? Or are you planning on doing that soon?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and we're hoping that each and every one that's listening too will check it out as well. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that, you're all on Facebook. Everybody and their mother's on Facebook, right? So, I mean, like, come join the party.
Yeah, exactly. And where the podcast is on many of the podcast platforms. All you got to really do is just search for Alouettes Flight Deck and then find it. And last but not least, Cliff, there's one more place you can find the podcast.
That would be YouTube. Same idea. You just do a search for Alouettes Flight Deck and boom, there you go. You got interviews. You've got great analysis. You've got us not on camera, which is even better, I think. But at least for me, anyways. But we will get to that point eventually. But folks, by all means, check out the YouTube page. Leave a like, subscribe. I mean, definitely subscribe. Leave a like. Leave some commentary, good or bad, so that we can, help provide an even better show for you all. And once again, please help us get to 100 subscribers so we can do all the important things, as well as I keep mentioning, we got a really sweet giveaway happening. So by all means, subscribe so you can be a part of it. And I don't think you'll be sorry.
No, I don't either. Let's talk about what the CFL announced today and our thoughts on the team nominees for the East and West end of year awards. So the Alouettes today, trying to find it, unless you know it off the top of your head here. Where is it?
Well, I mean, I got the press release in front of me, so if you want to know which player, if you want to know which players and positions and all that, I can.
Okay. Oh no, here it is. I got it here. So the Alouettes announced the following as our finalists for the Player of the Year, MOP, William Stanback. He was a unanimous selection. Defensive, it was David Menard, Canadian David Menard. Offensive lineman, Landon Rice. Special teams and Rookie of the Year, David Cote. Somebody mentioned this on social media already. I thought it was actually a pretty interesting comment. I'm curious to know what your thought is on who was chosen and who was not chosen. But, the Alouettes announced our year-end awards and only 4 players are announced. And this is not a bad team in any shape or form. What are your thoughts on the selections?
I'd say it's pretty much on par with what I was thinking as far as these categories go. I remember we were kind of talking earlier in the year about either Jake Wienecke or Eugene Lewis as the most outstanding player. But, I mean, William Stanback, definitely was in discussion as well. But, without question, he has been the driving force for the Alouettes. His second 1,000-yard rushing season, leading the league in rushing.
Yep. And
again, barring something miraculous, I think he will secure the title of the league leader, the league's most prolific rushing, most prolific running back.
He'll lead the CFL in yards this year. Yeah, I agree. I agree with him on that one too.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if he doesn't play on Friday, which again I don't see happening, but that's our guy. So without question, when you talk about most outstanding player for the Alouettes, when it's all said and done, yeah, it's definitely William Stanback without question. David Menard, I absolutely expected to be up there. As far as the defensive player of the year, and how outstanding is this? He's only actually started one game this year.
I was just about to mention that too. That's crazy.
Isn't that insane?
And considering where he is in the league leaders when it comes to sacks and everything that he's done this year, it's well deserved to be nominated as defensive player of the year.
100%. I've been singing his praises now for the past couple of weeks, and it's just incredible. The work that he puts in and everything he's done. Like, he has really truly blossomed here in Montreal. I mean, he had an okay career out in BC. Finally came home as part of the Danny Machocha mass signing of former Carabins. And at first, as I said, I freely admit, at first I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit like, okay, obviously we know why he's here. But my God, he has really been outstanding. Like, he has really made this defense sing. It's incredible. And the fact that he is not a starter is just mind-blowing.
Oh, it is completely mind-blowing. Yeah.
I mean, you look at that. You look at the defensive line, which, again, was Danny Machocha's number one concern when he became the general manager of the Alouettes. And I have to say, he did an absolutely outstanding job. When one of your backups is nominated for an award for being most outstanding defensive player, I mean, I think that just speaks to how strong a unit this is, and just also to making the most of your opportunities. That's exactly what David Menard has done. He has definitely made the most of his gameplay this year, and I can't picture this Alouettes defensive line without David Menard in it. It is just incredible, the work that he's done. And as far as
I would hope, by the way, I would hope, based on that one stat that you mentioned that was brought up on social, that I would hope would give him the sort of the leg up on getting that defensive, the nod to get him into the finale, the last two. I would hope, but
Well, that's it. I mean, but listen, like, he's done it this year for sure, and you definitely got to give him props. Like, you think about all the incredible defensive players this Alouettes team has, and it's almost hard to pick just one that has been really outstanding. But like, a lot of them have played extremely well. But yeah, when it comes to outstanding, that would definitely be it. If you're talking about most valuable, because there's a big difference, like most valuable player versus most outstanding player, and that's really what it came down to for me was, okay, there's a lot of guys that I would look at this team and like, okay, they are definitely valuable, but how many of them have been truly outstanding? And to me, like, David Menard has definitely proven that he is an outstanding football player. So this is definitely an award or a nomination that is well deserved.
Yeah, I agree.
When it comes to Canadian as well, like most outstanding Canadian, that's a tough one because there's definitely quite a few guys that can stand up and say, okay, this is definitely an outstanding Canadian-born player. Besides Menard, besides even David Cote, who has also been outstanding, as you can see with his other nominations. Chris Aki, also outstanding. Ty Cranston played extremely well this year. I mean, there's a lot of Canadian-born players that have really stepped up this year, and like I wouldn't have been mad at either Chris Aki or David Menard being nominated most outstanding Canadian. So I was surprised. I figured they'd both be nominated. I figured both those guys would be nominated for defensive and Canadian. It's just who would get which one. And I don't think I would have been mad either way, but it ends up being Menard getting both most outstanding Canadian and most outstanding defensive player, which is incredible. Like I said, it just really speaks to the kind of year that he's had this year.
Yeah, for sure.
When you talk about the offensive lineman, Landon Rice, I'm not opposed to this decision at all because he's actually played every single game. I think I would have gone with Sean Jameson initially, but then he got hurt, so I think that's kind of stopped his momentum right there and then. Tony Washington, on the surface too, he's definitely the most prolific member of the offensive line, but he's had injury issues as well and has struggled here and there. But I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, I mean, the offensive line has definitely played well overall this year. They've had their ups and downs, but most of it's been due to injury, so I can't really fault them for that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at the choice of Landon Rice. I mean, it's kind of funny to think about too. Like, Landon Rice and Tony Washington were part of that Johnny Manziel trade, and are really truly the only ones left in this league that were a part of that trade. If you're not, without counting the draft picks that ended up going to Hamilton,
right.
But like, if you're talking about the actual players that were involved in that deal, Landon Rice and Tony Washington are truly the only ones that are still in the Canadian Football League, which is also kind of incredible when you sit and think about it.
Yeah, I agree.
And David Cote. I mean, what can't we say about this guy?
I know. Coming from Borspe, we didn't know what to expect for kicking this year. But I think that him being in those two spots is really because we of the issues that we had at returner this year. But you know what? Not to take anything away from what he's done, I've been impressed. I think I am less scared when he is on the field than I was with Bede sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's well deserved because I don't think there could have been anybody else that it could have gone to.
For special teams or for rookie?
Special teams.
Because rookie, he was head and shoulders above all the other rookies. Not putting them down, but I mean, he truly has shined. And to me, it was like that should have been unanimous as far as that nomination goes for most outstanding rookie. There was, as far as I'm concerned, nobody else but David Cote could have had that. For special teams, yeah, I mean, definitely if Mario Alford was healthy all year and playing the way he was, that would have, no question that he would have gotten the nod. But yeah David Cote, like, he's been doing the thing. And again, it's one of those kind of situations where, once again, he's kind of head and shoulders above everybody else due to many factors. Like I said, the fact that there hasn't been a truly consistent returner since Alford went down. I think that was key right there. I mean, long snapper too. I mean, Pierre-Luc Caron was, once he settled down, was doing a decent enough job, and then Alexandre Gagné has now come in, and he's also done a solid job. But same thing, it's just not necessarily outstanding. Like, good, but not outstanding. So
right.
Overall, you take a look at the body work that David Cote has done, and yeah, for a rookie kicker, that has been outstanding. So yeah, I think really truly there's no question that it should have been David Cote for both most outstanding rookie and now most outstanding special teams player. So I'd say for the most part, like, I'm not mad at this list at all. In fact, I'd say they pretty much nailed it.
Yeah. Nobody else. You can't think of anybody that you might add, or you're set that you don't think there's anybody else.
Well, like I said, as far as like the defensive players, I mean, a lot of guys were very good this year, and some you could even argue were outstanding. But compared to David Menard, it's tough. I mean, like, that's why I'm not mad at the selection, but I'm a little surprised I didn't go elsewhere with it. But I mean, that's about it. I mean, and as far as Canadian goes, I mean, like with Cote, it kind of goes hand in hand. In fact, you could also make the argument that Cote could be the most outstanding Canadian as well, because he's a Canadian kicker as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's, like I said, you can go any number of ways with this, but the more I look at this list, the more I'm not mad at it at all.
Right.
But I think for the most part, they've pretty much nailed it. I think it was right from start to finish. I look at this list and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. This is how it should be.
Now here's the question: Do any of these players make it to the final two?
I think Stanback has a very, very good chance of making it to the final two. I think Cote definitely should make it to the final two.
Mm-hmm. For which one? For Cote?
I would say the rookie.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of any other rookies in the East that have had as outstanding a season as he has, and I'm honestly drawing a blank. Yeah, I think Cote and Stanback could easily be in that they could be the Eastern representatives, if you will.
Right.
Menard, I got a feeling he's going to be beaten out by Simone Lawrence as far as defensive player goes.
Okay.
I think just because Lawrence has been around longer and he's the name that people is going to remember more than anything else. I'm ready to be shocked though. And Menard certainly would be well worth being the Eastern representative. But if I was to put money on it, I'd probably say Stanback and Cote for most outstanding player, and I'll say most outstanding rookie. I think those are the guys that you see in Hamilton for the CFL Awards.
Because just to those who may not seen it, the other players in the East that were chosen was Simone Lawrence from Hamilton, McLeod Bethel Thompson from Toronto, Devontae Dedman from Ottawa, and obviously within William Stanback from Montreal. It's wow. Just the Stanback Simone Lawrence one, I think they're higher than McLeod Bethel Thompson is. I think they're higher than him. That's interesting. Boris Bede for special teams for Toronto. Wouldn't that be funny?
Oh my! Yeah. It's
yeah. So I think it's
a little more fuel to be thrown on the fire for that one.
I think it's going to be a tough one between Simone Lawrence and William Stanback. That's going to be tough for Eastern MOP player.
Yeah, and the fact that Toronto thought highly enough of McLeod Bethel Thompson that they felt comfortable with their quarterbacking situation to trade Nick Arbuckle. That was their big acquisition at the start of the season or last off season. They felt comfortable enough to trade him away. I guess speaks volumes to the kind of work that Macbeth has been able to do this year for the Argos. But
in my opinion, I don't think he's MOP caliber this year.
Yeah, he's been very good, but not outstanding, I don't find. William Stanback has been outstanding. Simone Lawrence has been outstanding, and he's been outstanding for a while. Devontae Dedmon, definitely outstanding for Ottawa, but...
Wow, when was the last time Calgary didn't have Bo Levi as their player?
Well, he has definitely not been outstanding this year.
No, he's not.
He's done the job, and even when he got hurt, like coming back from injury like he did, he's been fine. He's done a fine job, but not outstanding at all. No. Good, but not outstanding. And that's really what it comes down to. Like, well, if you're going by the letter of the law as far as what an outstanding football player is, that has not been Bo Levi Mitchell this year.
Nope. The last thing we want to talk about before we talk about the game coming up this Friday is a story that was in the Gazette with Alouettes president Mario Cecchini, and the title of it is Alouettes president Cecchini has work cut out convincing fans to venture to Molson Stadium. We mentioned a couple of things at the beginning of the show about what it was a positive to have so many, and I understand the reasoning to have the schedule the way that it was, but it took away from, I think, the one technically day game that we had. It technically was only one day game, right?
Technically.
So I think that didn't help. The weather really was not cooperative this year, and I really think, in all honesty, Cliff, we saw what the very first game was during the summer and stuff like that. First couple of games, what we averaged. I honestly think, and they're not saying it, but I honestly think that the obviously COVID, but the vaccine passport, I think, also played a huge impact on the crowd. I really, really do.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, you can say, like, okay, the Alouettes have only drawn 11,000, 12,000, 13,000. I think the biggest crowd this year was what, 17,000?
Yeah, it was like the first or second game.
Right. And again, that may have been before the first game. That was the first game.
Yeah, it was not affected by the COVID passport.
Right. The passport definitely, I'm sure, has played a factor because, again, I guess
actually, no. The first game they drew 14-7-5-3. 2 home games later, the Thanksgiving Day game was 15-2-36. So that was the highest on the year. Was 15-2-36.
Okay, so sure, that's gonna affect things. I mean, I guess it stands to reason that there's probably a lot of Alouettes fans that for whatever reason are not fully vaccinated, and as a result won't be attending games, whether it's either they're not attending games because they're not vaccinated, or they're not attending games because they don't feel comfortable being in an open air stadium with other people. Even though essentially, if you're at an Alouettes game this year, it's because you're double vaxxed and you've got the proof that says so.
Yeah.
But there still are some people that still will not take that chance, and I don't fault them for it at all. I think it's definitely affected things. Because it definitely affects people attending last minute, and maybe a lot of the fans that normally would travel to Alouettes games, maybe they don't feel like they're capable of doing so because of the passport, because of the restrictions that are in place, what have you. At the end of the day, I mean, if you want to see a football game bad enough, you're gonna find a way. If you don't, you're gonna find an excuse. That you could say that about anything in life, really. But
yeah, it's true.
I think a lot of it, though, is the overall product that we've seen, and we've talked about this throughout the entire season, is the home experience can be very good at times and very bad at times. And we've been very, I think, fair with our criticism of it. Like, we've come to expect a certain level when it comes to the Alouettes and the entertainment that they provide. The 2019 season, without question, was one of the most entertaining in almost a decade. And ever since then, the Alouettes have been trying to recapture that lightning in a bottle. And I think for the most part have failed miserably in doing so. You can blame the crowds. You can blame the lack of people, like not being able to sell as many games. You can blame the restrictions. There's a whole lot of things you can blame. And to the point where I am willing to give this year a mulligan as far as why haven't the Alouettes been able to pack the stadium as much as they can or as much as they should. But to me, I think a lot of it has to do with the overall presentation of things. And yeah, I think Mario Cecchini does have his work cut out for him because, again, the Alouettes have been making all the right moves, at least on paper, as far as appealing to all the Quebec people, as far as making this Quebec's football team.
Right.
Whether it's signing, having a president who's bilingual, having a general manager who's bilingual, bringing in so many Quebec-born players that people know and in theory love, helping to develop the game at the university level. I mean, the Alouettes have done a lot to really prove that they are Quebec's football team in the same way that the Saskatchewan Roughriders are Saskatchewan's football team. The Alouettes have made a lot of inroads in that sense. And one would hope that, investing all of that is going to pay off with fans flocking to the stadium. And it hasn't happened. Yes, I'm sure a big part of it is because of COVID and the restrictions in place, so on and so forth. But at the same time, if you want to support Quebec's football team, you still got to go to the stadium. Like, the Alouettes have made the moves in order to appeal to Quebecers, and they're still not showing up. So what more can be done?
Yeah, and it's true because, I mean, people need to remember there were massive cuts when it came to staffing this year for the Alouettes. So, they weren't able to do what they wanted to in the community. Obviously, COVID was the issue with COVID there too. But still, when I lost my season ticket manager, I think, and I had mine for the longest time. But recently, I've had 3 in the past 4 years. Mm-hmm. Which is concerning. But then again, the amount of the exodus from the Alouettes this year, to me, is concerning. From the manager of the boutique to the head of the cheerleaders, which were, eliminated and then brought back. So it's things hopefully will change this off season. You need to get football people in here who love this team, love the game, love the city, and love the province, and love the country. You need to promote this as much as possible.
I agree, and I think that's what a lot of the problem is. I get the impression sometimes that the summer intern is running things when it comes to like the on-field or the off-field product or the in-game experience or anything. Like, a lot of it is just sort of you're kind of learning this as you go kind of thing. Like, you can't operate a professional football team like that.
No. Yeah, even when you lose your social media person, And
that's another thing too. Like, it really does feel like a lot of the stuff is copy paste. A lot of the stuff is Google translated because, like, again, I understand you have to hire someone who's bilingual, someone who understands French and English. And obviously, being Quebec, French is going to be more important. But let's not forget, this is the Canadian Football League. So you're also catering to the rest of Canada, who is predominantly English. So you got to have someone that is truly bilingual, not just write your tweets in French and then throw them in Google Translate and hope that the translation comes out. Because I'm sorry to say, but there's a lot of times where I've looked at some of the the tweets from the Alouettes Twitter account, and like, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, sometimes the words don't match up, because I've talked to you about it too, where I questioned. I was like, what? And I'm not, I am not, my French is still questionable. But at least I'm able to, I know when something doesn't look right.
Right.
Whether I'm looking at it in French or whether I'm looking at it with the translation into English, I know something's not right.
Right. And again, like, really, truly, too, hiring football people, like people that understand the sport, understand the traditions that go into it, understand the nuances that the Canadian game offers. I mean, there's a lot to it. So, I mean, it really does behoove the Alouettes to ensure that, once things are getting better, once things are getting more back to normal, like I said, this year you almost have to write off as, okay, this is obviously not going to be, this is not the year you should be basing your future off of. But when it comes down to, like, when you start thinking about the next couple of years down the road, making sure you have the right people in place in your organization, like people that truly are football people and understand the game of football and what it takes to become a professional football franchise.
Yeah.
To me, that's key more than anything else. Whether or not they speak English or French, it's important, but at the same time, that shouldn't be your end all and hope that they like hire someone because they can speak French and English and then hope to turn them into football fans. It's a strategy that I don't think particularly works. I mean, there's a lot of very passionate people in Quebec who are bilingual and are huge football fans. Mm-hmm. Those are the people you should be targeting. Those are people you need to invite into the fold, so to speak, and make them a key element of this organization. Because that passion, that excitement level, they're the ones that are going to be able to spread it to other people and get them excited about going to Alouettes football games and being a part of this fun ride, so to speak. I mean, being an Alouettes fan is supposed to be a great experience because, again, we've got a very good football team here. they're doing their thing on the field. They're winning games. They're going to the playoffs. They could have their second straight winning season. Like, this is a football team, quite frankly, that should be selling out Percival Molson Stadium, and they're not. Again, it's not because they're a so-so team on the field. And I want to believe that a lot of people are still watching football at home, and maybe that's where it is.
The numbers are showing that they are. That's the funny thing. That the numbers are still showing that people are watching on TV, which is I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and so that tells me like there is definitely an appetite for football in Quebec, in Canada, and so on.
Right. And
it's just a matter of now, how do you turn that into butts in the seats?
Right, and I agree. But and for those of you who are saying, well, Cliff, Tim, you're season ticket holders, you're going to give them your money anyways. That may be the fact, but we still want to. We get the same survey that everybody does after each game. Mm-hmm. Our numbers stay the same most likely for our answers, but we still want to have a good time. We want to see the team succeed. We like to see ads in the Metro. We love to see, spots on TV or in the newspaper or wherever it may be. Mm-hmm. We may be season ticket holders, but we still want to enjoy the time that we have there and be able to promote the team along with the team. Mm-hmm. Because, in essence, we are ambassadors of the team. They're not paying us. We're paying to get in, but we're ambassadors for the team too.
Without question.
But there's only so much Cliff and Tim can do.
Right. And I'll mention this too. You and I have been to TD Place in Ottawa twice this year. Mm-hmm. And we've taken in that football experience. And for the most part, even though the team has not been great, they're still getting, and again, they too have been sort of hampered with COVID restrictions and vaccine passports and so on and so forth. But for the most part, like at least the two games that we went to, the fans were there. They were interactive. Yeah. They were made to be a part of the spectacle, so to speak.
They were dodging the rain also.
Yep. Well, at least that second game, yeah. But no, for sure. Ottawa gets it. They found a way to appeal to their market and get people interested in the game. And again,
that's the question then. What is OSEG doing that the Alouettes aren't?
Well, and maybe that's the textbook that the Alouettes should be learning from, or what's going on out in Saskatchewan.
And by the way, if anybody doesn't know, OSEG is, I think it's Ontario Sports and Entertainment Group. It's the
Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group.
What did I say? Ontario?
You said Ontario.
Okay, yeah. It's the group that owns the not only the Red Blacks, but also owns
the Ottawa 67s.
Yeah, and Athletico.
I
can't remember.
Yeah, feel free to add us, folks. If
please.
But point is, this is an ownership group that has, for the most part, listened to their fans and provided them with, they've revitalized football in Ottawa. Like they made, before COVID, they made Ottawa the fun, cool place to go and watch a football game.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different experience. It's a great stadium. But it's a different atmosphere than Montreal. Mm-hmm. But they're doing something right.
Yep. And I know Toronto's having issues as well. And again, they don't have to worry about the whole French-English thing. They just need to put a product out there. But they're having their woes too. And again, same idea. They've got a very good football team. At least record-wise.
You know what's funny? How this really makes me think is when you look at the crowds that are currently being announced and showing up in Toronto or at BMO versus what they were when they were at Skydome. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? The only thing that I can think of is how many tickets were given out.
I think that's really what
the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, and again, they've got some very loud, vocal fans in Toronto that are diehards and will follow this team no matter what, and that's great. They too are ambassadors for their football club, but now you still got to be able to fill the stadium. And to me, I think that's really what it comes down to is take COVID out of the instance. Like I said, this year is a mulligan. It's going forward and making sure that you have what it takes to ensure that you can get people interested enough to buy season tickets, or at least make the effort to attend as many games as possible and try to fill your stadium as much as possible. There's definitely a lot of work ahead for everybody, including Mario Cecchini. Like, to me though, it's it's a sign of the times, I think, in a lot of ways. But at the same time, the fans that are there, the ones that are going to be there, make sure you're engaging them as well and getting their perspective. And like I said, you and I have talked about this a number of times on this show as what the Alouettes need to be doing or what they should be doing as far as making sure that the in-game experience is second to none.
Yeah.
And really, truly, there's a lot of it's a lot of little things, but it's the little things that eventually turn into big things and so on and so forth. To me, that those are the things that really have to be paid attention to on a consistent basis. And it just goes from there.
Yep. And our hope, by the way, in the next couple of weeks is to have Alouettes President Marticini on the show again. I think it's our goal now to try to have the president of the team on the show to finish off the season, just to find out what did or what didn't happen in the previous, the current season, and what's they're looking forward to next. And
if that's the case, folks, then and if you've got similar concerns to us, let us know so we can talk to him about it and we can be that voice for you. Because if there's a reason why you're not going to Alouettes games, it can't be because the team sucks, because quite frankly, they don't. This is a very good football team. And as far as I'm concerned, COVID or no COVID, this team should be selling out football games. Yeah. You put this team in any other market, and I think this would be, a very hot ticket.
Yeah, even COVID restrictions aside, I would hope 15,000 in the stadium. I would hope.
I think that's a very attainable goal.
Yeah.
And if the Alouettes do end up hosting the Eastern semifinal, I think this team definitely should be at least at 20,000 or close to 20,000 for that game.
Let's get there first.
Of course. I mean, like I said, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I'm just saying if that's the case, then there's as far as I'm concerned, there's no good reason why that fans should not be able to attend that Eastern semifinal game if it happens.
Now, speaking of the carpet and the horse, the game on Friday, as I mentioned earlier, it is going to be the latest. It is going to be the latest home finale ever in Alouettes franchise history to be played when it is played. Interesting stat, I'm sure, and it was talked about at the beginning of the season too. It's like, the Alouettes play the Ottawa 3-4 times. This week will be, they'll be playing Ottawa for the fourth time in a season, and the last time that it actually did happen was in 2013 versus Toronto. And I don't remember people bitching very much that we were playing Toronto 4 times that year. 2013 was the last year that AC played.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Last time that we played Ottawa, by the way, 4 times in the same season was in 1980. That was also the last time prior to 2013 that we had played a team or teams 4 times in a season, because just a note, in 1980, we played Toronto and Ottawa 4 times that year.
Oh.
And lastly, if it does come to this, this is what we're hoping for with Ottawa this week, is that the last 4 games series sweep happened to be 1979 versus the Toronto Argonauts.
Uh-huh.
So we will find out tomorrow what the depth chart will be. We will see if there are any major changes. I wouldn't expect anything, considering this game is going to be it is a meaningful game. Other than what we heard earlier by Zerkowski, where Tony Washington probably won't be playing, and our leading wide receiver Eugene Lewis is right now. I don't want to say doubtful, but it's
questionable.
He is questionable, but I want him to see him get to that 1,000 yards. But we want him to be healthy, obviously. But any other major changes beyond that, we want to, we want to be able to. We'll let you know, and we'll post it to not only to our social, but also to Facebook, etc., like we have been over the past couple of weeks.
It's gonna be interesting because yes, this is an important game, but at the same time, you don't want to necessarily keep everybody out there for too long either. So I definitely think there'll be some switches in the lineup. Like I said, I wouldn't mind, especially if the Alouettes have a comfortable enough lead, I wouldn't mind seeing Shea Patterson get some reps as far as quarterback goes, just to see what he can bring, so to speak. Because again, it's good to see that Matthew Schultz is back practicing, which tells me that hopefully he might be available for the playoffs. But just in case not, and God forbid something does happen to Trevor Harris.
Yeah, same type of thing. I agree.
You got to see what you got, and I think this would be the opportunity, especially too if it's a comfortable enough lead against Ottawa. I say let Shea Patterson play a couple of series, just to see what it's like.
Doesn't everybody remember the day that I think AC went down with a I'm trying to remember what year it was. AC went down and they hosted the Eastern Final, and they lost with a backup quarterback. I'm trying to remember. Oh, name is this.
Yeah, it was Ted White.
Thank you. Yes, Ted White.
That would be 2004, I believe it was.
Takuli, by the way, is off the sixth game, and he was full participation. By the way, I guess I'm going to be wrong about Mario Alford. I thought he was eligible to come off. I guess it's a lot worse than what it actually. It's more than a sixth game.
Yeah, that's unfortunately
but
that
we'll
seems
see
to be
if
the
he's
case.
we'll see if he's placed from six game, if he stays in the sixth game, or if he has moved to the one game. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he's extended, which I haven't seen anything yet on the transaction report.
No, there's still a lot of things. I'm also kind of hoping to, if William Stanback, let him play a little bit just to keep fresh, but at the same time too, maybe he's going to win the rushing title. So but and you think anything's going to change this week when it comes to punt returns and stuff like that? I mean, Martese Jackson was just so this week, but Darius Pickett basically handed and we didn't touch on that at all, but he basically handed Winnipeg the ball at kickoff. You know what? You've got Martese Jackson back there. You don't really need Darius Pickett back there.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. But we do have some others that are on the roster that might be out that maybe the Alouettes will give a chance to. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see when the depth chart comes out. If we have any rookies who are going to be starting or possibly backing out, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, that's the thing. Like, you can't treat this necessarily like a preseason game because, as you said, there are implications for the playoffs.
Oh, huge.
But at the same time, too, you also don't want to risk anybody getting hurt either. It's a very fine line that the Alouettes are walking with this particular game, because it doesn't mean anything for the Ottawa Redblacks. It means a lot to us, but at the same time, you don't want your starters going in playing this technically nothing game, but still meaning something game. It's so tough.
Oh, I know.
All I can think about too is all the games that we lost by like one score, like the close games that we lost by. I'm like, God, if only we could have gotten those games under our belt, and then we'd be hosting the Eastern Final. Because you think about it, if we could have turned at least two of those games into wins, the Alouettes would be hosting the Eastern Final. Full stop.
Yeah.
Instead of being in this situation, and then we could be just resting everybody. But it is what it is.
Yeah, but you know how I feel about those type of games. You know exactly, because I feel like it's like I'm paying for a preseason game.
I agree.
Which I hate.
No, without question. But yeah, like I said, it's very interesting to see where we are right now as far as this being the last game of the regular season, and knowing full well that the Alouettes will be playing the next week in a playoff game.
Yeah, I know what you mean. No, everything say is fair too. I mean, that's why I'm looking at very intently at the injury report. I mean, at least Cameron Artis-Payne, by the way, hamstring. He's back to full participation. Philip Gagnon, lower leg, did not participate. Taekwon Glass is a healthy scratch, full participation. Brian Hiralamana, still ankle limited. Sean Jameson, knee, but full participation.
I'm expecting to see him back, and I have a feeling too, like he'll be back for the playoffs, in which case that would be a great help, because as I said, like I think had he not gotten injured, he would have been the nominee for most outstanding most outstanding lineman for the Alouettes.
Yeah. Paul Koscheck, hip, full participation. As I mentioned, Taku Lee already back, full participation. Here it is. Eugene Lewis, hip, limited. David Menard, shoulder, limited. Ronnie Randall, lower leg, full. Chris Schluger, back for this game, full, but he's been like that for a couple of weeks. I think it's like all the last week too. But here's the positive too. Is about Matthew Schultz. He had limited participation, but because of his knee, but at least he's back. Wesley Sutton, healthy scratch, full participation. Michael Wakefield, healthy scratch, full participation. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, Tony Washington, calf, did not participate, but we've already been told by Herb Zukowski that Tony will not be playing this week.
So there you go. So I mean, like there's players that we'd like to see in the lineup, but I think a lot of it too is, do we ease them in? Do we just wait for the game, the Eastern semifinal? I mean, as I said, it's a very delicate line that you're straddling. So
yeah, I agree.
I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on Friday. What the final result is of who is actually going to be playing in this game versus Ottawa. But
yeah. Alouettes are favored by 14 points with an over/under of 45. take that for what it is, considering the Edmonton-Toronto game last night was 42 points, I think, as an over-under, and look how many points were scored.
Yep.
But I think these are two different rosters. And again, the game's at 7:30, and I'm still shaking my head as I have for the past couple of weeks. This is a 7:30 game on the 19th of November. I hope. I mean, I don't hate Friday games as much as I hate Thursday games. I would love to have a lot more Saturday games. I would love to.
Oh, especially this late in the year too. Like a Saturday afternoon game would have definitely been a little more fan friendly.
Right.
Even fans aren't showing up.
But. Yeah. Hey, even Edmonton's lucky. They don't have to play in the snow. After seeing Team Canada last night win, that was still amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
I've never seen a snow celebration like that before. Absolutely epic after their second goal.
I think the closest thing would have to be that 2014 Eastern semifinal where Tanner Marsh was doing Snow Angels.
Yes.
I think that would be the closest.
But no, nothing like seeing a Team Canada carp. That's what it looked like to me. It was like a carp going into the snow. It was hilarious. If you know what we're talking about, go back on social media. I don't think everybody has to have seen it by now. Has to.
Oh, without question.
And then depending on the result on Friday, which we hope is a positive, obviously, we have to wait till 4 p.m. on Saturday to see what the result is between Saskatchewan and Hamilton.
Yeah, and it's funny because Saskatchewan coach Craig Dickinson was pretty upset with his squad, with the effort that was put forth. I mean, knowing full well that they're going to be hosting the Western semifinal. Sorry. At the same time, like they didn't really put much of an effort into that game versus the Elks, and a lot of people were wondering, well, does that mean they're going to be how many of their starters are actually going to be resting? And so far, we've seen. Well, we know for sure Cody Fajardo is not going to be playing quarterback for the Riders, and there's a couple of other scratches or a couple of guys won't be going to Hamilton for that game.
Oh, they already announced Cody's not going to be playing?
They already announced it, yeah. So I guess we'll see what happens. Well, and let's be honest. I mean, Cody Fajardo over the past couple of weeks has just been average. I'll say. I think the rest of the team around him has been amazing, and that's why they've been as successful as they have been. But I mean, he's kind of like Trevor Harris in the sense that he's good, but not elite. He's being paid like an elite quarterback, but
yeah, this is where it frustrates me. As you're talking about the games earlier in the year, the ones that we could have won, we wouldn't have to be in this situation. It would just be a win and in.
Yeah.
See that's what's going to frustrate me the most. I think about this game, the game on if we win and then in the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
Anyways, can't do anything about it.
Well, control what you can control,
yep.
And I think that's really what it has to come down to for the Alouettes is just show up on Friday, play your game like you're supposed to, get that W. At least that way you can say you've had your second straight winning season, which is I think a great achievement in and of itself, and then just let the chips fall where they may, as far as whether the Alouettes are going to host the Eastern semifinal or if they're going to hit the road and go to Hamilton for that.
Exactly. So
that's all we can do.
If you do go to the game on Friday, treat win or lose. I mean, obviously, you still want to treat this as potentially the last Alouettes game of the 2021 home game of the 2021 season. So
make it a good one.
Yes.
Show up. Dress warm because it's really chilly.
Yes.
I can tell you right now it's going to be chilly.
It's going to be chilly.
Bring your woolies, bring your toque. I know, make sure I hope the stadium people make sure they have plenty of hot coffee and hot chocolate because, it's going to be.
Even though they keep on advertising only coffee. Wait, what about us who don't drink coffee? Hey, come on.
I see people with the hot chocolate.
I know, but they only seem to be advertising just the coffee.
Yeah.
Anyways. I digress. Hey, we really appreciate you guys for everything you've done over the season so far, and we hope to continue, obviously, until up to the season finale for the sixth season of the Alouettes Flightdeck. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flightdeck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.